Hello everyone, and welcome to Lesson 2 on Modal Verbs. Today we're going to be talking about the cultural notes about modal verbs. We'll get into some text reading, and after that we'll have some activities to help us practice. Let's get started. Let's take a look at a few cultural notes on modal verbs. First of all, modal verbs are often used to make a request or a suggestion more gentle. That's to say that we don't want to sound too demanding or too direct when we ask someone to do something or we recommend someone to do something. Modal verbs help us to avoid being too direct or too strong in our words. If you are speaking with someone from another culture or country, it is a good idea to consider your use of modal verbs carefully. In places where directness is avoided, such as South Korea or Saudi Arabia, cultures or countries in Asia or the Middle East, or even in Latin America, the use of modal verbs can help soften your words and will generally be understood well. On the contrary, if you are speaking with someone from a place that uses a more direct communication style, such as those in Germany or Australia, places like North America or Europe, the use of modal verbs may reduce the clarity of your message. In any case, if you want to demonstrate that something is imperative, it is okay to be direct as long as you consider the tone of your voice and the use of words such as please and thank you. Let's take a look at a scenario where modal verbs can make a big difference. A young student is falling behind in their studies. The teacher wants to speak with the parent of this child and get the message across that the child needs more support at home with their studies. For cultures with an indirect communication style, the teacher might use a modal verb to soften her words. For example, she could say, "You may want to consider offering your child more support in their studies at home. Perhaps you can try reading exercises together, or maybe even doing some worksheets." When the teacher uses the modal verbs in this way to explain to the parents that the child needs more help in their study, she isn't ordering them to do it, but she's gently implying that this would be the necessary thing to do in order for the student to succeed. However, for cultures with a more direct communication style, using the above phrase might only suggest to parents that their child needs to study more, but it does not demonstrate that it is essential. It seems like a recommendation or a suggestion, but it does not seem imperative. In the case of speaking with someone from a direct communication style, it is not necessary to use modal verbs. However, it is always a good idea to be polite and be careful with the tone of voice used to give the command. Your child requires more support in their studies at home. Do some reading exercises together and practice with some worksheets. The tone that I've used to say this sentence and the fact that I didn't use please makes this command very strong and very direct. It could make some listeners feel quite uncomfortable. In order to make this direct sentence a little bit more gentle, I can soften the tone of my voice and also add the word please. Your child requires more support in their studies at home. Please do some reading exercises together and practice with some worksheets. You can see that this is a gentler way, but still a direct way of giving an order or a command to someone. Let's read the following conversation between Chipo and Rosemary, and try to identify the modal verbs. Chipo: "Hi Rosemary, have you finished your project yet?" Rosemary: "Hey Chipo, no, I haven't. Why do you ask?" Chipo: "The deadline is tomorrow. You have to turn it in. When are you going to finish it?" Rosemary: "Oh no, I can't make the deadline. I haven't even started my project. Can we hand it in next week?" Chipo: "I don't think so. You'll have to ask Ms. Moyo and see if it's okay. I think you must finish it by tomorrow to receive credit. She probably won't accept late work." So, did you find the modal verbs in that conversation? Let's take a look. You have to turn it in. I can't make the deadline. You'll have to ask Ms. Moyo. I think you must finish it by tomorrow. Here we have a short story. Let's find the modal verbs. It was early spring. A tired rabbit was walking through the forest looking for a place to take a nap, but he wasn't able to find a good place. Then he came up to a field. There must be a nice place to sleep here, he thought. If I can take a rest, I will be able to get my energy back and continue on my journey. So, did you find the modal verbs in this short story? He wasn't able to find a good place. There must be a nice place to sleep here. If I can take a rest, I will be able to get my energy back and continue on my journey. You've done some great work in our lesson so far. Now it's time to do some peer work to get some more practice for practical situations that you might use in real life. Our first activity is a dialogue creation. Work with your partner to create a conversation using modal verbs. Some examples where you might have a conversation using modal verbs could be discussing an upcoming school assignment, explaining customs of your country to a visitor, or giving detailed instructions on how to do something. Your next activity is some short story writing. You're going to create your own short story using modal verbs. Modal verbs are a great way to tell the story of a warrior, create a fable to teach a lesson, or tell the nonfiction story of someone who overcame a challenge. And finally, here's an example of what you might find on your oral exam for modal verbs. All you have to do is give some instructions using modal verbs. It can be any kind of instructions that you'd like. Cooking your favorite meal, moving from one place to another, giving directions, or how to do one of your favorite activities. Congratulations, you have finished another lesson on modal verbs, and you did a great job. Thanks for all your effort, and keep up the great work.